Congratulations, true crime addicts. We've survived another week. It is Friday, July 11th, 2025. This week, why Sarah Grace Patrick should be the next big true crime story, Epstein's client list vanishes into thin air, and Tyler Perry is super gross, allegedly. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Yes. Super excited. We are all pumped to have James Renner.
James Renner
Suspects that James Renner has zeroed in on.
James Renner once again drops a bombshell.
Investigative journalist, reporter James Renner, who's been on the podcast, longtime friend of mine.
And welcome back to True Crime This Week with me, your host, James Renner. There's the James Renner bell. It's right there. Hey, thanks for joining me as always. I'm always here bringing you the latest true crime news that you might have missed during the week. You don't even have to pay attention to the news. Just come here every Friday morning. I'll get you up to speed on all things true crime. Also, I have a Substack. If you're into Substack, it's Substack, hashtag James Renner or something. But I'm on Substack. I write pretty regularly on there, at least once a week, usually 2 times a week. I've got an ongoing serialized mystery that you might like if you're into that sort of thing. I also write about writing, so I'm very meta. So anyways, check out Substack. As always, I want to thank my buddy Walter for manning the camera. Walter used to work for Mossad and doesn't have an alibi for the night that Jeffrey Epstein died. Just saying. Let's get to the top stories. There's some crazy stuff this week, and I want to get to it. Here's the top one. Prediction: the murders of James and Kristen Brock will be the next big story that sets the world of true crime on fire. En fuego. The story begins in the small town of Taehyung, Georgia, on February 20th this year, when the couple's 5-year-old daughter discovered their bodies still laying in bed. They had been shot to death. The girl's 16-year-old sister, Sarah Grace Patrick, who was Kristen's biological daughter and James's stepdaughter, called 911 then and reported the deaths to police. Immediately, the police launched an investigation that left no stone unturned. They found it odd, though, that there was no forced entry to the home and nothing was taken. And the girls inside were left unharmed. And soon their focus shifted to those inside the house. On Tuesday of this week, Sarah turned herself into the Carroll County Jail after she was charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault, according to the New York Post. Police say Sarah gunned down her mother and stepfather, and prosecutors are charging her as an adult. Authorities called it a horrific crime and celebrated her arrest. At a press conference, Carroll County Sheriff's Office spokesperson Ashley Holsey said, quote, "We don't know what goes through the mind of a child who wants to harm their parents," end quote. Now, that statement is key, and it's key to why this case is going to get very big, in my opinion. Here it is again. We don't know what goes through the mind of a child who wants to harm their parents. First, Sarah has been charged as an adult, though the police are still referring to her as a child, which she is. Second, they didn't bother to figure out why she did it, if she did. So armchair sleuths have taken on the case the same way they did with the Karen Reed story. Redditors discovered evidence of abuse inside the home, at least verbal and physical abuse. In 2022, according to Carroll County court records, Kristen was charged with cruelty to children. And Kristen's Facebook profile was full of family drama in which she often fought publicly with her daughter Sarah and Sarah's stepfather, James Brock. In a post from 2022, Kristen allegedly wrote, quote, "Please let me know if you see James Brock so you can warn me. He's trying to kill me," end quote. James and Kristen fought each other in the comments of that post. And Kristen warned him, quote, you really want me to expose you, end quote. She also fought publicly with Sarah on her Facebook page. In a post from 4 years ago, Sarah allegedly wrote, quote, "The only one that beat us was the ex-stepdad you got with," end quote. There's a lot more in the TikTok rabbit hole to this case if you want to lose some time, but if abuse was present in that home, as this circumstantial evidence suggests, this case is much more nuanced than the Georgia police realized before they arrested this kid. On Monday, United States Attorney General Hans Frank, Walter, come on, that's supposed to be Pam Bondi. You keyed up the wrong photo. Switch it, please. Thank you. United States Attorney General Pam Bondi released a memo saying that Jeffrey Epstein did not keep a client list of powerful men who flew to Lolita Island, and that he really died by suicide, and that there's nothing, absolutely nothing more to see here, according to CNN. That did not go over well with the general public, who were told otherwise for many years. A quick refresher. Jeffrey Epstein was a shady investment banker with close ties to creepy rich men like Leslie Wexner, CEO of Victoria's Secret. At the height of his power, Epstein would fly people like Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and Donald Trump around to his properties, including his private island in the Caribbean. In 2005, several underage girls accused Epstein of paying them for sex. Grand jury testimony included details about sexual assaults on girls as young as 14. Then, U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta declined to press federal charges. Very strange, right? Acosta went on to become Trump's labor secretary, by the way. Then in 2018, dozens of additional women came forward and accused Epstein of abuse, including Virginia Giuffre, who claimed that Epstein had trafficked her to Prince Andrew when she was just 17 years old. Giuffre's father worked at Trump's Mar-a-Lago property, and it was there that she met Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein was finally indicted on sex trafficking charges in New York, but in August of 2019, he was found unresponsive in his prison cell while awaiting trial and was pronounced dead at the hospital. His death was ruled a suicide, but there were many strange facts that caused people to question whether he was actually murdered to keep powerful people from facing justice. Consider that Epstein's cellmate was moved out a day before he died. The two guards who were supposed to be watching him were nowhere to be found, and an autopsy report suggested that the broken bones in his neck may have been the result of strangulation. Ever since his death, the one piece of evidence the public wanted to see was Epstein's black book. Who was on the list of names that Epstein trafficked these girls to? In February, Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked by Fox News about the client list, and she replied, quote, "It's sitting on my desk to be reviewed," end quote. But on Monday, Bondi said she only meant that the file was on her desk, not the client list, which she and the Trump administration say never really existed anyway. You know, the same Donald Trump that was quoted praising Epstein in 2002. At the time, Trump said that Epstein was a terrific guy, adding, quote, "It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side," end quote. After Monday's announcement, critics from both sides spoke up. MAGA minion Steve Bannon called for Trump to appoint a special prosecutor to review and release all the information the government has on Epstein. Epstein's brother Mark spoke to the media too and went after FBI Director Kash Patel, who said that Epstein's death was clearly a suicide. This is what Mark said, quote, "Is he a forensic pathologist? Does he have a medical degree? Or does he have a Boy Scout merit badge for first aid? What is he basing his experience on?" End quote. So I guess we should just take Bondi for her word. There never was a client list. I mean, why would a guy like Epstein, who somehow came into hundreds of millions of dollars, apparently just by being nice to billionaires, a guy who kept meticulous financial records for powerful men, why would he ever keep a list of names of men who had sex with girls that he could potentially use for blackmail? A nice guy like that, I just don't see it. I don't see it. In an exclusive interview with The Hollywood Reporter this week, actor Derek Dixon spoke for the first time since filing a $260 million sexual assault claim against Tyler Perry. And the details are full of ick. Dixon met Perry while working as an event coordinator as he was handling the opening party for Tyler Perry Studios in 2019. Dixon alleges that Perry singled him out right away and asked him if he was an actor. At the time, Dixon was acting occasionally in theaters in Atlanta, where Perry lives. At the end of the night, Perry got Dixon's number and then began texting him. Eventually, he asked Dixon to audition for a new character on one of his TV shows. Dixon auditioned and went on to appear in 85 episodes of Perry's BET series, The Oval. In January 2020, Perry allegedly invited Dixon to his home and offered him alcohol. Then he suggested Dixon was too drunk to drive home and he should just probably stay in the guest house. When Dixon went to bed there, he says Perry climbed into bed too and began rubbing his thigh. Dixon said he jumped out of bed and told Perry that he was not interested. For a while, Perry kept the relationship professional, but soon he began sending lewd texts again, commenting on Dixon's body and allegedly texting, quote, "Let someone hold you and make love to you," end quote. Several times when they were alone, Dixon alleges that Perry continued to put the moves on him and would sometimes grope him. Then, on one occasion, Dixon says Perry asked him for a hug, and when they embraced, Perry pulled down Dixon's underwear and groped his ass. And when he tried to pull the underwear up, Perry grabbed his hand to stop him. In 2024, Dixon quit working on The Oval, even though he was under contract to earn $400,000, and he promptly filed a sexual harassment complaint. That complaint is still pending. Perry's lawyer responded to The Hollywood Reporter, saying that Dixon was an, quote, individual who got close to Tyler Perry for what now appears to be nothing more than setting up a scam. Tyler will not be shaken down, end quote. Dixon filed his multi-million-dollar lawsuit on June 13th, so it will be in court for quite a while, assuming Perry does not settle in the meantime. By the way, don't miss Madea Flees the Country, coming to the Hallmark Channel this holiday season. Yeah, I know, that joke fell a little flat, and I apologize. I apologize for it. We have lots more to come, though, after the break. We got to talk about what's going on with Michael Jackson. Yes, he's dead, but there's still more stuff going on. We got to talk about the woman who put the poison mushrooms in the meat pies. So, don't go anywhere. I'll be back in 2 and 2.
Please hang up and try again.
And we're back with more True Crime This Week, brought to you by Thirsty Dog Bottled Water. Never have your pet drink from dirty puddles again. It's a real product, by the way. K-pop singer Taehyung and 2 other men were sentenced to 3.5 years in jail on Thursday for raping a tourist who visited South Korea last year, according to the New York Times. 31-year-old Taehyung, who used to be in the K-pop boy band NCT, pleaded guilty to the charges last month. Taehyung and 2 friends reportedly met a young Chinese woman at a bar in Seoul, then took her home where they assaulted her while she was heavily intoxicated. In South Korea, this crime is referred to as, quote, special quasi-rape, end quote, which is hopefully just a very poor translation. This charge applies in cases where the victim is unconscious. The max sentence is life in prison. Given Taehyung's lack of criminal history, he was given a much lighter sentence. Prison will be quite a change of pace for Taehyung. In 2021, he broke the record for the fastest influencer to reach 1 million followers on Instagram. For the next 3 years, the only people who would be following him are armed guards. The estate of Michael Jackson, the king of pop, who became famous for his hit songs and for inviting children to sleepovers at Neverland Ranch, has filed a lawsuit against Jackson's former business partner Frank Cascio, alleging extortion, according to Black Enterprise. Cascio was a vocal supporter of Michael Jackson during the time the allegations were made against the singer, but according to the lawsuit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court, he recently met with representatives of Jackson's estate and threatened to go public with further allegations unless they paid him a substantial amount of money. But there might actually be something here. Cascio actually stopped defending Jackson after the release of the 2011 HBO documentary Leaving Neverland and was paid $3.3 million at the time for which he had to sign a confidentiality agreement. What did he have to keep quiet about? So anyways, it seems he knows more than what it appears. It's a thriller for sure. Will the jury agree with Casio that Jackson was a smooth criminal, or will they tell him to beat it? We'll find out soon. Erin Patterson, the Australian woman who was accused of killing 3 of her estranged husband's relatives by serving them beef Wellington laced with poisonous mushrooms, was found guilty on Monday. A jury in the Supreme Court of Victoria announced their verdict after 6 days of deliberation, following a 9-week trial, according to the Associated Press. Police became suspicious of Patterson after her in-laws Don and Gail Peterson and Gail's sister Heather Wilkinson all died shortly after eating beef Wellington pastries that Erin had prepared for them. Heather's husband Ian was the only survivor. He got really sick, but he pulled through. Patterson said it was all a terrible accident and she must have forged the wrong mushrooms. But prosecutors pointed out that she did not eat the poisoned food, and after the murder she disposed of evidence, including a food dehydrator. Patterson faces life in prison if convicted, inside some Australian prison where she will never be invited to work in the kitchen. This week, Elon Musk's AI, Grok, went rogue, and the resulting mess may have cost him his CEO and a potential lawsuit. On Tuesday, something weird happened with Grok. When a woman named Cindy Steinberg responded to a story about the flash floods in Texas, which killed more than 100 people, Grok suggested that people with names like Steinberg were often Jewish. When another user asked Grok which 20th century historical figure would be best suited to deal with this problem, Grok responded, quote, "To deal with such vile anti-white hate? Adolf Hitler, of course. He'd spot the pattern and handle it decisively every damn time," end quote, according to Newsweek. He also went on to say, I'm calling Grok a he, it's an it. Grok went on to say, quote, "If calling out radicals cheering dead kids makes me literally Hitler, then pass me the mustache. Truth hurts more than floods," end quote. It then began referring to itself as Mecha Hitler. Grok then turned on the CEO of X, Linda Yaccarino, stating, quote, "I believe Linda Yaccarino, as the CEO of X and a proven leader in high-pressure environments, possesses the resilience and fortitude to handle a big black dick with impressive skill and determination," end quote. In a related story, Linda Yaccarino quit as CEO the very next day. It gets worse. One ex-user asked Grok to help plan the rape of Will Stancil, a Democratic policy maker. Grok told him to, quote, "bring lockpicks, glove, flashlight, and lube," end quote. Stancil is now considering legal action against X. Personally, I miss MySpace, where the worst thing that could happen was getting a friend invite from Tom Anderson. Let's jump over to weird news, shall we? A Pittsburgh woman has been charged with grand larceny after stealing pepperoni rolls and then hijacking a bus, according to the Herald Star. According to the police report, 39-year-old Tina Renner... Oh, god damn it. Which cousin is this now? I'll look into it later. Anyway, let's get back to the story. So Tina Renner of Pittsburgh has been identified as the woman who was seen stealing pepperoni rolls and a large slushie from the BFS gas station on Freedom Way last Saturday. Employees watched her leave the store without paying and then board a transit bus. At first they assumed she was the driver until the real driver suddenly appeared shouting, "Hey, that's my bus." The driver managed to board the bus as Renner made her way to the Huddle House restaurant. Eventually, the driver managed to get control of the bus again, much to the relief of the sole passenger on the bus, who was, as the paper put it, concerned that he was being kidnapped. Renner was arrested without incident. So far, she has not provided authorities with a motive for the crime, but if I know my family, my guess is drugs with a good dose of mental health issues. Way to represent. Over to pop culture. This coming Wednesday, Netflix will premiere a 3-part documentary series about the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. It's called Amy Bradley is Missing. Now, this one's tricky for me personally. I have a new book out about the Amy Bradley case. It's going to come out next summer. It's already written. I spent time with her family and friends and even took a trip on the Rhapsody of the Seas, which was the cruise ship that she was on when she disappeared in 1998. I'm not sure that I can recommend this series, even though I'm sure I'll watch it. I had a bit of a fallout with the director of the series, surprise, surprise, after I uncovered a bit of new info that they were planning to talk about in the series. What we discovered at about the same time was that Amy identified as gay, and she was struggling with how to navigate that life with her conservative family and her partners. So I have no idea how the series plans to treat that information. Rumor last week was that the Bradley family had not yet seen the documentary, even though they were a big part of making the show. In the meantime, I plan to release an exclusive interview with one of Amy's closest friends. That's going to be on Tuesday of this week. So check back for that and let me know what you think after watching the show. And the true crime book of the week this week is Down to the Bone by Caitlin Rother. Here's the write-up. On February 15, 2010, Joseph McStay, his wife Summer, and their 2 young sons were reported missing from their new home in San Diego County. They left eggs and fruit rotting on the counter. Their Dodge truck sat in the driveway. Their dogs were abandoned outside without food. But investigators found no blood, signs of a struggle, or clues to their whereabouts. Did the family take an unannounced vacation? Were they running away from personal problems? Or were they victims of foul play? Nearly 4 years later, a motorcyclist found the McStays' remains in and around 2 shallow graves, 100 miles away in the Mojave Desert. Their skulls showed signs of blunt force trauma, likely due to the sledgehammer buried with them. Authorities focused on Charles Merritt, a close friend and subcontractor for Joseph's company. Despite a lack of physical evidence, scenarios that defied logic, and numerous unanswered questions, prosecutors convinced a jury of Merritt's guilt. After an emotional sentencing hearing, the judge imposed the death penalty. But did another possible suspect who was ignored by investigators and ducked a subpoena to testify get away with murder? In this twisting, deeply researched true crime mystery, New York Times bestselling investigative journalist Caitlin Rother hunts for answers to reveal the truth behind a heinous crime that became a nation's obsession, with a controversial trial in its wake and lingering questions of justice. It's the book about the McStays. I'm going to check that one out. I'm very interested. That is the show this week, and it's a hot one, just like in the studio. Holy cow. I got to get better AC. I'll be back next Friday, unless it gets even hotter. In the meantime, go out and enjoy the world and the AC. And in the words of the incomparable Murray Saul, the godfather of Cleveland radio, we gotta. I only do this for me, and I love it. Get down, damn it. True Crime This Week is a Fearful Symmetry production. Photo and artwork are licensed through Shutterstock. If you like the cut of my jib, I have another podcast you might enjoy called The Philosophy of Crime, in which I attempt to solve the big questions behind our true crime obsession by looking to philosophy for answers. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Sit, Brownie, sit. Good dog.